It's smoke and mirror, Sue. It's all one-man band back here.
Yeah.
So I got to push the right button or we got nothing. Okay. Are you comfortable?
Sure.
This is Inside Look. I'm Jeff Lyons. My guest today is Sue Schriber, the Grand Dame of Evansville Theater. Would you say that? Would you take that title?
That now, Jeff.
No, don't be modest. You can't be modest in here.
One of the oldest actors in Evansville, I'll say that.
Well, that's Grande, Grande.
Okay.
See, you gotta use the euphemisms here to get through. Thanks for doing this with me.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking.
I got so many questions for you. You know, our paths have crossed many times over the years, but I never really knew the whole Sue Schriber story and how you got to be so talented and then everywhere. I mean, you've done it all, at least from what I saw on Google. And you are on Google, too, so you conquered the internet as well. So tell us, where'd you start out and where were you born, that sort of thing?
I was born here in Evansville,
sure.
West Sider.
Right.
Born and raised West Sider. Went to Centennial Grade School.
Now that is West Sider. That's one of the oldie but goodies.
And later it became ISUE.
Right.
And went to Wrights High School. Went to University of Evansville. So I've always been an Evansvillian.
Yeah. When did you first get on stage?
Interesting story. When I was in the 8th grade, we did a fire prevention playlet for the school. And I had a frilly Easter dress, so I got to play the part of the girl that couldn't get too close to the stove.
Okay.
And that was my first experience in theater. I don't think I had any lines, but I did get to wear my Easter dress.
A lot of method acting involved with that. So, and then were you just smitten right away with being on stage and people paying attention?
But then at Wrights, in my sophomore year, Eva Kennard was there, and what a wonderful, wonderful person she was, and very influential in my life, especially in theater. And she was doing Wizard of Oz. And I auditioned, had never done anything like that. I was the one that had to leave the audition in the middle because I was so sick at my stomach I couldn't complete my audition. And she did allow me to come back later and audition. And I got the role of Dorothy.
That's no small role.
Yeah, I
in the
know.
Wizard
So
of Oz.
I thought, well, I'm pretty swell. And it went up and looking at the board, and it shows the cast list and shows my name. And at the time, we had thespian troops.
Sure.
And I thought, well, shoot, I'm going to be a thespian, and I'm just a sophomore. And I was telling all the kids around me how good I was. And little did I know that Eva was behind me, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around and was completely gotten. And she said, "You'll be a thespian if the troupe decides you'll be a thespian." And so she taught me from day one that you can be modest on stage and should be.
Keep your ego in check.
And then I also found out later that I was the tallest person in the sophomore class, tallest girl in the sophomore class, so she could have a lot more munchkins if I was Dorothy.
Oh, I get it. Right. Yeah. So you wouldn't have to import the smaller,
right.
4th and 3rd graders. You could use kids that may be right. So how did the performance go then? We get up there and you have to sing Over the Rainbow. Was it the musical? I guess there is only a musical version, right?
It went very well. And at the time, Joe Vizzoso was a senior at Wrights, and his dad had a construction company. So we had a yellow brick road that went out over the audience and was lighted from below, and so we walked all the way through the audience as we left the auditorium on the yellow brick road. It rained on stage, and all thanks to Joe Vizzoso's dad's construction company. So it was quite a grand show, and that was the first time that I was in the same show as Terry Becker. However, we had a double cast, and he was the Scarecrow, and I was Dorothy, but we were in opposite casts. So
and that's something. But then you two, of course, intertwined throughout your theatrical
My mother
years.
was his music teacher.
That's where I've heard the name before.
Right.
Okay, we had a little off microphone conversation about your family, the Horn family, and I couldn't place it, Valeria Horn.
Right.
Piano. Okay, now it all makes sense.
Yes.
No, that's why you're here, Sue. So now I can sleep tonight. I know who Valeria Horn was. So you do well at Wrights, and now it's off to U of E, right?
Right.
And for theater, or what were you thinking?
No, I actually went as a music major.
Okay.
Because my mom was a music teacher and then became a librarian at the school, and so I just thought that's what I had to be, was a music teacher. And I auditioned for my first show for Sam Smiley. And he called me into his office after the auditions, after he had not cast me. And he said, you know, Suzanne, he always called me by, you know, Suzanne, you would do a great job, but I notice here that you're a music major and you don't have time for my theater. And that was back in the days when, you know, it was the drama department and the music department, which they've combined and done a lot of things together since then. And so the next quarter, not the next semester, because it was still quarters, and I was at Evansville College at the time, I became a drama major and with a music minor.
And then what was your first role out there?
It was in a Shakespeare called Love's Labour's Lost. And would you like for me to recite my lines?
Sure, just the opener. How about?
Here comes Boyette. That was my line.
That was it?
That was it.
Wow.
I just recited my entire dialogue for that show.
Yeah.
I really didn't get into U of E shows until I was working on my master's.
Is that right?
And then I was working as a work study in the theater department, and I was cast in several shows while working on my master's, but very few shows, 2 shows in my undergraduate work.
So you took acting classes, obviously, if you were in the theater department. So what did that reveal about the inner Sue Schriber? I mean, or Sue Horn, I guess, at that point. What came out, or how did you then take that and transfer it to the stage?
I realized that I love doing. I don't do real well as Sue Schriber, but you put me in a character and I can kind of ham it up and do pretty good then. But I realized that there was a lot of education in theater, and it wasn't just getting up on stage and having fun. And then John David Lutz, well, you just can't beat John David Lutz. I was actually able to work for him several times, and what a master.
And
what a master.
Sam Smiley, John David Lutz, of course, legacy names, titans at the U of E theater department, and
Dudley
turned out,
Thomas.
dozens and dozens, hundreds of actors and actresses all that are working all over the country.
Right.
And you decided to stay here in Evansville. And then what happens after U of E? I know you taught in school. I'm trying to get around to that. So I guess there wasn't a music education degree at that point, or how did you do that?
It was a speech and drama degree, but then the first year after I graduated, I didn't get a teaching job, so I decided that I would sub. And I was subbing at Columbia Elementary School.
You've got all the old,
That's right.
no longer
That's
there, right?
All the buildings I've been in have been torn down, Jeff.
You're knocking the place
That's how
down.
old I am.
That's right.
But I was subbing at Columbia, and they needed a sub for the music teacher. And I went into the principal. They called me into the principal's office, and he said, now, you are the 3rd music teacher that we've had here, and we're just seeing who we want to hire. So, okay, fine. So I went up in the classrooms on the 2nd floor, those old rickety wooden steps that were hollowed out practically.
Right. Yeah, and then kind of wavy from all the traffic on them.
And the 2nd floor windows that were probably, 10, 12 feet tall, and just on those little cables on the side that you're supposed to put it, because that's the only air conditioning you had after all. And after 3 days of that, in that course of 3 days, a child threw a chair out the 2nd floor window in my classroom. And I thought, well, that takes care of that. I guess I'm back to my subbing days.
But you weren't in the chair, so there's
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. So then I went down after my last day, and he offered me the job.
Oh, okay.
I cried all the way home, and I said, I'm not so sure I want to take this job, but I did, and it was probably some of the most valuable teaching career I had. Those kids, you knew if they got anything, it was because you gave it to them, and that's so rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure. And so you taught. How long was your teaching career then?
73 to 78, I was at Columbia.
Okay.
And then they were going to tear down the building. Was 105 years old, and I went out to Oak Hill Middle School. Well, it was Oak Hill Elementary at the time, and then became Oak Hill Middle School while I was there. And in 2011, I went out to the new campus, the new junior high school for North High School. So, and I had a 46-year teaching career.
That is unbelievable.
27 years as a vocal music teacher and 19 years as a school counselor.
Wow. And so how did you work in the acting? I mean, teaching music in school all day long, I wouldn't think you'd have anything left to then get on stage and be somebody else?
Well, that's called Dick Engbers.
And he, of course, the big name at the Evansville Civic
right,
Theater
right,
back in
and
the day.
was the managing director and artistic director, and just he could bring things out of people like you couldn't believe. He could also convince you to do anything you absolutely couldn't do, too. And in 1974 was when we went from the museum to the Columbia and Fulton, which has just reopened, and that just thrilled me to death.
The building's gorgeous, and right across the street from your old school, so you're back
That's
in the
right.
old neighborhood.
That's
you know.
right. And so in that summer of 1974, Jack and I would go down to the theater, and it was the old beer garden. I
remember the beer garden, sure.
So we would scrape stuff off the floor and scrub and scrub
you could imagine.
do all that until about 5 o'clock. Then we'd go home, take a shower, and be back for rehearsal at 7. And we were rehearsing Cabaret and open Cabaret that summer. And so that was quite an event for that theater.
And the rest is history that we're going to get into. We need to circle around and pick up Jack here. So Jack Schriber, your husband of almost 50 years, right? How did you meet? And then you two were just kind of the dynamic duo of theater for so many years. So kind of describe that.
We met actually in a class at U of E. He's 4 years older than I. And Gil Clarity had a speech class, a summer speech class, and he didn't have enough people in the master's class or enough people in the bachelor's class, so he combined them. And we were sitting in the class, and he leaned back one day and he said, "Want to go over to Dairy Queen for an ice cream? Well, you know the way to this woman's heart."
That's right.
And that's when we could walk over to Division. There was a Dairy Queen right there in the corner. I don't know if it was Weinbach and Division, but someplace over there was a Dairy Queen. And so we walked over and got a little Dairy Queen,
and then decided to get married right off the bat. You know,
we might have waited a year or two, but
but you both were in education, and
right.
and Jack, of course, was the supervisor of fine arts for the school corporation for many years, and I guess he had to work up to that at some point. Probably
he was at Central High School before he was there.
Okay, so both of you teaching all day. And raising a family, which we'll get back around to in a minute, and then acting on the stage at night. And Jack, as much as you, or were you
He
primarily?
was more in production. Now, he was a real big actor at U of E when he was at U of E. Yeah. He did a lot of Shakespeare and a lot of the shows there. But then as we kind of got older at Civic, he did some shows at Civic, but he kind of let me do that, and he took care of Mom and Tiffany at home.
Okay. So when... you're at Civic Theater. You talked about doing Cabaret. Of course, it was the beer garden at that point. Was that really then when Civic Theater at the old Columbia or Fulton Theater there took off and then became rooted there because of Dick Engbers? So how many shows do you think you did there? I mean, I thought you did all of them, but as it turns out, you didn't.
No.
But almost all.
When we did our 75th anniversary gala, whatever it was, we'd decided that I had done about 90 shows at that point. So,
90 shows.
Yeah.
And I know you were
in
in
one capacity or another.
Yeah, and you got a pretty wide range. I mean, you've played a nun in all those nonsense serials. You've done what just did.
Anything Goes.
Cole Porter, Anything Goes. Not too long ago.
Yeah.
I think, were you in The Music Man at some point in your career?
I have never been in The Music Man.
You've never done The Music Man?
I've directed it, but I've never been in it.
I knew you directed it, but for some reason I had that in there. And then we'll mention that, although it's not of the theater, but you were on Channel 14. They shot some promos in the late 70s, kind of promoting David James and our news team here. And you all were in, I think it was a Wesselman's, and, with kind of corny lines, like, "Oh, I always knew he'd be a nice newsman," that sort of thing. And so I'm sure that you're still getting residuals from those promos,
yes.
right?
But I can't remember now what it was for, but I did one commercial here or something here to promote the station or something. And they said, "We need you to come with your hair and rollers and in your nightgown and your robe." And I thought, my kind of deal.
Yeah.
My kind of gig.
I'll be right over.
Yeah.
So is there anything you won't do or wouldn't do back throughout your career? You're like this, no, I can't do that one. No.
Well,
I mean, if you did 90.
I mean, Dick Ingvers had me tap dancing on a table that was being turned around as I was tap dancing. Thought I could never do that. I had never I grew up on a hill,
Yeah.
so I never roller skated.
No.
And when in one review, he said, okay, you need to skate from upstage to downstage. And so I put on my roller skates and they had me back there, and they'd kind of push me, and I'd go all the way to the other side, and then sat down on this little bench. And so that's my roller skating experience. And
what was the show that you would have had to roller skate?
It was a review.
Wasn't Xanadu, was it? That was the famous roller disco movie, but
no, it had nothing to do with it. I mean, I can't remember, but I just remember that he had me on roller skates. Everybody was on roller skates, but I was the only one that couldn't skate.
I get it. Okay. So and naturally they put you on the Lazy Susan turntable thing out there. So, but you lived to tell. See, I mean that's part of it.
And I've got lots of scars on my legs and back.
It's too bad this is audio only. You know, we could have show and tell, but we better not do that. So my other question then. So you had this vast theater background and music education, and now you decide you just don't have enough going on, so you were part of the group that launched I'm going to call it the all-city musical, or the idea of a summer musical using kids from all over. How did that come about? Was there a demand for it, or did you say, this would be fun?
There was a group. Jack was part of that group. I was not part of that group. Andy Lindauer, Terry Becker, and two businessmen whose names I've forgotten now. It's been too long ago.
It wasn't Rogers and Hammerstein or Lerner and Lowe or any of those, were it? No,
it was two local gentlemen, and they just decided that would be a good thing to do. Initially, they said, let's bring in a big director, a big producer, and have them do this experience for the kids. And the directors at the time said, we have lots of talent right here in this city. Why don't we just make it like a summer musical honors program? And because it was a class at the time. And that's how it started in 1989, I think it was.
And the first show was The Music Man.
Right.
Okay, and I remember I was in the audience. I was already out of school at that point, but remember seeing it. Now, did you direct that one?
No, I didn't come in until the third one, and the third one was Annie, and I did the ticket office for that. And then
not the role of the ticket office, the actual tickets.
The ticket office. I sold the tickets for the show, and then the next year I directed Peter Pan.
Okay.
And that was my first one. Then I directed him, with the exception of 1994 when they did South Pacific, and I had periodontal surgery and was in no shape to to do anything.
So we know what the limit is for you. If
there
you've had
you go.
gum surgery, you're out. So Peter Pan would be extreme. I saw that one too, and they flew the kids, right? They brought in, is it Foy or somebody from Louisville or somewhere with the cables and everything. So huge.
As a matter of fact, I think we flew you.
You did fly me. Yes, I was going to brush over that, but when we would go over and do the weather live from these upcoming productions, they allowed me to fly, and it was, just for me walking in off the street and, here, put this on and hook that up, and it's quite compacting, when that thing lifts up, it. So where do you even start with a show like that as a director?
Well, you have a wonderful troupe. And you have the producers, and you have the scenic designer, and you have the vocal music, and you have the directing, and I mean, there was a gang of us, choreographer,
but it's still a lot of pressure. I mean, it all comes down on you in the end, right?
That's
the buck stops
That's
here.
The truth.
And I was
so that's why you surround yourself with fabulous people.
Well, I learned that with the really big show, because it kind of took care of itself in a way, because we had so many when we were doing the fundraiser for Arc of Evansville. But back to the musical here. So you're directing these kids on Peter Pan. You probably had, 120 kids total that you
a lot,
had to wrangle, and, and here
that's where comes those parents. The parents are wonderful.
Yeah, but you spent the whole school year wrangling kids and not throwing chairs through windows, and now you're down, Vandenberg Auditorium or the ONB Events Plaza. And what are those days like, or what were those days like?
They were grand. When you see the depth of talent in this area, And we pulled kids from Mount Vernon, from Henderson, from Gibson County, all around. And to see them grow and want to come back. And we have kids to this day that still come back and have celebrations of times together in summer musicals. And so
that's a great gift you've given everybody who's been in these.
And a great gift they gave me and all of us. It was just tremendous, and I did that until 2014. And then as of 2015, I'm still involved with the summer musical because my daughter Tiffany is now the producer.
Right.
And so now I have gone from ticket office to directing. Now I'm the runner.
Oh.
I sit at the door, and when the next child is supposed to go into audition, I go and get them and take them to the audition room.
Well, you're probably a reassuring presence,
Yeah.
so, One thing that always impressed me about those productions, and those were the only ones I was kind of privy, I would be down there either to do a remote or
Right.
something and kind of, just fly on the wall, but the level of professionalism, I mean, you really demanded a professional standard with the kids, and even though they're high school kids in many cases or younger, you really always kept it at a professional level. So how do you keep that up?
Well, I'm of the opinion that kids will do whatever you think they should do. Whatever you think they can do, they'll be able to do. They may not think they can at the beginning, but you just give them expectations and they'll live up to it.
This goes back to the Dick Ingber's principle of you can roller skate on a rotating
That's right.
table, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, maybe he knew something after all, right? What was your favorite show in that run? I mean, I know it's kind of like picking a favorite kid, but you must have had one that really stood out where you thought, man, that I've reached the peak.
Well, I was real pleased with Fiddler on the Roof because that had a lot of depth. All of the shows had good depth. I loved Crazy for You because those kids worked their hearts out and did some tap dancing like you wouldn't see at 42nd Street. Some of the tap dancing, Jan Stovall, choreographer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And how long does it take typically from, okay, we're going to do Fiddler on the Roof to the show's on its feet, we're in dress rehearsal, because it's pretty compressed schedule because of summer, right?
From about the end of May to the middle of July.
So you're talking like 4-hour rehearsals a day or something like that?
Yes, from 5 to 9 until we got, for like the first 3 weeks, if I can remember correctly, and then we'd go 5 to 10, and when we got down to the auditorium, we had to be out of the building by midnight, so we would go until 11:50.
Right. get your money's worth
That's
out
right.
of it, right? And eat a lot of cold pizza along the way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have a food committee. We had food moms,
Yeah.
and they gather food. Like, we eat like kings and queens the whole time we're down there because the food parents just take care of us. So it was always good eating.
Yeah. So you mentioned Tiffany earlier, who's kind of picked up, where you left off or, is carrying it forward. Talk about Tiffany a little bit, your family, your grandsons, your family.
Okay. Well, Tiffany, my daughter, went to USI and graduated from North. And I said, you could go to USI for their first year because she didn't know what she wanted to do. And then you can decide wherever you want to go. Well, she got to USI, and they put her in the theater program. She does technical theater and wanted to learn to become a stage manager, so they started putting her in summer stock. I think it was after her freshman year. She went to Young Abe Lincoln. They were doing that production at the time. And she's been to Texas, to Florida, to California. I mean, she's been all over with these summer gigs. And she was in New York and got her equity points in New York and did some stage managing there. And then met her husband, she had met him before, but he came back into her life, and so that brought her back to Evansville. And she has worked for the school corporation for 15 so years now, and is manager of fine arts programs. And so that's what kind of got her in. And then as a result of that, when we were doing the summer musical, we said, well, why don't you just come and stage manage the summer musical?
As long as you're here.
As long as you're here. And so that's how she got into that. And then had a grandson by marriage, Reagan, who is now a paramedic in Colorado. And we had our second grandson, Jacob, who passed away at age 12. He was severely autistic and never communicated. But as a result of that, we noticed that, and you're probably aware of this too, when these kids are in special needs programs, they are so valuable and those teachers are so good, but oftentimes they would want to do things outside of the curriculum and couldn't afford them.
Right.
So Jack and I would try to foster that as much as we could for Jacob. And then after he passed, we started the Jacob Ball Wish Fund. And Jack and I thought, well, we'll put $1,000 in this every year. And quarterly, we can give $250 little wishes. And then our other grandson, Reagan, was a senior. He passed away in May of 13, and this was in September. And he decided to do as his senior project a show that would benefit the Jacob Ball Wish Fund. And so we did a 2-person show, last 5 years, and I directed it and produced it, and we put it together and did it at AIS. And he did it with Claire Wright, a friend of his, and their goal was to make $2,000, and as it turned out, they made $6,000. And they got to go to Washington, D.C. because they won, I can't remember the name of the award now, but anyhow, they were recognized in Washington. It was wonderful. And when we went to Wiki and DJB and Diane and to do our
extortion breakfast.
Yeah, the extortion breakfast.
You shamelessly plug whatever.
That's right.
Over there.
That's right. And DJB said, and the first annual, and Tiffany said, oh, no. This is Reagan's senior project. And she said, trust me, the first annual. And sure enough.
Yeah. And that's been how many ago now?
This is our 13th. We did Anything
show.
Goes this year, and it was our 13th.
That you were in?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How was that getting back up there?
I only do one show a year now. I do the Jacob Show, and it was great fun. Now, my first musical at Civic Theater was Anything Goes, and I played the part of Bonnie, which was the gun mall. Mm-hmm. But we have since become more politically correct in Anything Goes.
Right.
So now I played Mrs. Harcourt, the young debutante's mother.
The sensible accountant type, right?
That's right.
Harmless, right?
The old lady, I think, is what it amounts to, Jeff.
Yeah.
That's what I've played the past several years.
Grand with an E.
Oh, the Grand.
Lady.
The
That's
Grand,
right.
yes.
So, and your family then, I mean, is just entwined with the theater and giving back. And here, it's kind of come full circle, with your own family being able to do that. That's got to be a wonderful feeling.
It is.
From year to year to go on like that. So, I mean, you were at 90 shows way back when. It's got to be well over, 100, 120 or so right now. You got a number in mind? Like, going to reach for 200
I don't want to count because I'd wear myself out.
Yeah. What was your favorite role? I know I think I asked you that before and you never really said, or maybe I talked over you, but what was your favorite role to play in all these shows?
There have been so many that have been so grand, but I have to go back to Pump Boys and Dinettes. I did with Carrie Gray, wonderful, wonderful woman. We've done many shows together, and we played sisters, and it was just great fun, and it had a long run at Civic Theater, and I think it was because it was so light, and you didn't have to work quite as hard. You don't misunderstand. You still had to work at the role, but after you did it for a while, because I think it played like 4 weeks at Civic, which was unheard of at the time.
Sure.
Outside a 2-week run.
Mm-hmm.
So that was great fun. We enjoyed that, and then we got to do it down at the Vandenberg Auditorium at Christmas again, and so that was super. Of course, I loved playing Mame. And
have you only done that once, or have you been Mame several times
only
too?
Once.
Okay.
Only once. And Mama Rose and Gypsy.
Of course.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
So I've had lots of great opportunities in theater.
Did you ever have the bug to go to Broadway or go big time, or was
Never.
this always suitable for you?
Yeah. Now, I did have a couple paying gigs. I did New Harmony Theater a couple times. So, I went out of the city.
That's right. That's right. They pay you in meals at the Red Geranium, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Or was there actual money that changed hands?
Yes, I did.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I got to work with equity actors and So I was the only non-equity in the group, so I didn't get paid as much as they did, but nevertheless, I got a paycheck.
You would think they would just go ahead and bring you on into equity after all that, wouldn't you? You know, I mean, I'm not sure what the rules are to get in.
I'm sure I didn't hold up to it, though.
Yeah. Well, not in our opinion here, you know, I think, because we've seen you on stage all these years. And I'm so glad you came on my little tiny stage. This is my little show in the basement that I do here.
I love it
So
very much.
Just kind of
And I loved getting the honor of working with you in the commercials and the really big show. What fun we had.
We did, you know, I can't remember, I think 22 or 21 or 22 really big shows, and you and Jack were part of many of those over the years, and there was nothing, you never turned, because we wrote the material for you, and I never had any notes from you two. It always came back. Well, Jack always wanted to have a certain kind of costume.
Yeah.
So we had to accommodate that, but you were always the true professional. Whatever we threw at you, you did. I think we made you wear a dress made out of products made at Berry Plastics.
That's right.
While Steve Small sang, well, we had rewritten the words to Copacabana to sell Berry Plastics. And
that's right. And I got to do Minnie Pearl.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about Minnie Pearl in there.
And Laugh-In. Remember the Laugh-In?
I do. I remember all of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah. In many different ways. But you and several others that give so much anyway really made that show work, because you came in and shared your star with us for just a few
what
minutes.
A gift that was for you to do that. For
It was
art.
fun. I really enjoyed it. I really miss it. But times have changed, and we've gone different direction and everything like that. Sue, I want to thank you for coming up the hill here today. You won't have to roller skate down, okay?
Oh, thank you
from
so
Mount
much,
Auburn
Jeff.
here, where the Inside Look studios are. I thank you again for being out here
Thank
with me.
you so much.
And you want to sing a couple lines from MAME? Or
No, I don't think so.
We're not going to make you do that. No. If you'd like to listen to all of the Inside Look podcasts, you can do that wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, be sure to check out our companion podcast, What's the Trend? That comes out every Friday with Aaron Weeks and Casey Mason. With Sue Schriber, I'm Jeff Lyons. Thanks for joining us on Inside Look.